Slowhands Rock Talk Show.
Music, but Andy, thank you so much for making a little bit of time out of your afternoon to come on to the podcast and speak to myself about music. Obviously, we'll talk about music for yourself, we'll talk about therapy, and we'll talk about everything else that fits in between as well. But before we get started, how are you actually doing?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I've a new knee as of February on my left knee. Got a knee replacement, so I think 34 years of bouncing up and down on stage is taking its toll. And I've got the other one to get done in October.
Right.
So we knew it was going to be a quiet year this year. So, but it's good. I feel great. Yeah, we've done a few festivals this year because it takes 12 weeks for the knee to recover when you get it like replaced.
I spoke with Michael at the start of the year. He was on the podcast and he was I think you just had the surgery done.
Yeah.
And so you were in recovery mode, but it needs done. I suppose it's just trying to find the gap in your calendar to actually do it. Today's episode is sponsored by Drumport. Drumport are known as a distributor for high-quality musical instruments, including their innovative Stomp Tech product line. A must-have for all musicians looking to expand their sound whilst keeping full control of it. I have mine here. Make sure you check out Drumport at www.drumport.de and get your own today. Now back to the video.
It is, and it's the least gigs that I've ever done in my entire life in therapy in 1 year.
Yeah,
which is lunacy. You know, whenever we started the band, and we all had jobs, where the other two were at college, we did loads and loads of gigs still.
Yeah,
me and Micah were sitting down chatting about this, and we've done, I think, 8 festivals and a warm-up club show and a birthday celebration thing last week.
Yeah,
and that'll be we're doing the German Full Metal Cruise the next 2 weekends.
Yeah,
I think that'll bring us up to about 12 gigs in the year, and therapy's never done that few gigs.
Yeah,
so it's been good now. I mean, after I recovered from my knee, I've been doing loads of writing and I've been playing lots of guitar and stuff, but it's been really good. But it was, I think, for the three of us to get our heads around, it was very, very strange to have that much downtime.
It's almost like going back to COVID for the first time in years. The world shut down, and for somebody like yourself who's probably used to touring, it was probably a strange one. But for yourself, Andy, similar to what I'd said to Michael, you know, you've done a million interviews. Mm-hmm. All the obvious questions have already been asked and answered. So my plan today is to hopefully maybe ask you some questions that you don't normally get asked, which could be a task. But we'll go back to the very beginning. So for yourself, where originally were you brought up?
I was born in Antrim. My parents were from Belfast, and it started getting a bit tasty during the Troubles.
Yep.
And they didn't want me. I was the firstborn. They didn't want me growing up kind of around it. So they moved, wasn't very far. They moved like 14 miles away to Antrim. And it got a bit tasty there. And then they ended up moving to Ballyclare, which is a market town, population of 7,000 people. Yeah. I was, I think, 4 years of age when I moved to Ballyclare. So I grew up there until I moved out, I think, when I was 19 to Belfast. I had a flat of my own. But I grew up in a wee town called Ballyclare. Market town, very, very quite, normal market town. Yeah. Paddy McNair, the footballers from Ballyclare. Right. Tommy Wright, that used to manage Livingston in Scotland. He's from Ballyclare. Yeah. And that's it. Yeah, it's great. There's only one pub left in it open. A wee square, loads of agriculture. Yeah, not bad.
Were you exposed to music from a young age, and if so, where did that come from?
Well, nobody in my immediate family was musical. I mean, I later found out that my dad's uncle was very, very musical. Right. But whenever I grew up, I always liked listening to music in the house. My mum and dad had like vinyl singles. So my dad would go to work, and my mum was a housewife initially before she got a job, and she would play music around the house. So it'd be kind of rock and roll records, old country and western records. Yeah. And the first memory I have is I never really paid any attention was she had a Shirley Bassey 7-inch of Diamonds Are Forever.
Right, okay.
And I really liked it. So she used to have to play it for apparently, I can't really remember this. Mum said she had to play it over and over again.
Yeah.
And then I went to primary school, and I suppose my first big introduction to music was the primary school we went to. One day, the teacher came in and says, "Does anyone want to play a musical instrument? A big school in Belfast doesn't need all these old instruments, and they've been given loads. And if anyone here puts their hand up, we'll give you some lessons." And I thought, okay, why not? So I put my hand up, never really thought about it. And there was a queue to get into this little room. And people were leaving with saxophones and trumpets and violins. And I thought, ooh, I quite fancy a saxophone.
Yeah.
And then when I got in, the only thing left was a trombone. And I sort of took it home. So like, you actually took it home with me that day, because I used to walk home from school. That's how long ago this was.
Yeah.
So I walked home from school with this trombone case. It took me forever to get it home. And my mum and dad were going like, "What's that?" I was given it at school. So along with that came some lessons. And the guy that taught me, Mr. Cook, whenever I went to secondary education, he kept on. So like up until 14, 15, I played the trombone.
Do you think on the next Therapy album we could see a trombone solo?
It's been such a while since I've... You know what? We actually took it on tour once. There's video footage of Neil Cooper that's in the band at the minute. He was in a band called The Beyond.
Yeah.
And when Therapy started, The Beyond took us on tour. So we only had a single out, and we bumped into their manager. And we have a song on our first album called Baby Teeth called Loser Cop.
Yeah. And
it's got this sort of like avant-garde free jazz section with a saxophone.
Yes, I know it.
And we were playing that with the trombone. So I took my trombone with me on that tour. And there is footage of us in the Derby Rock House playing Loser Cop, but with me playing the solo on the trombone.
That's quite cool.
That's the last time I played it. So that was 1990. I think that would have been the last time I played the trombone.
See, if you cast your mind back, do you remember what was the first album that you ever bought with your own money?
It was Love Bites with the Buzzcocks.
Right.
And I actually got a paper round so I could afford it.
Yeah.
So I remember hearing stuff like Blockbuster with a Sweet when I was 7, and my dad bought it for me.
Yeah.
And then on my birthday, Ever Fallen in Love with Someone You Shouldn't Have came out.
Right.
And I couldn't afford that, but a fellow I went to school with had discovered heavy metal and he didn't like punk anymore. Mm-hmm. A week after he bought that single, he sold it to me for 25p. And then I really wanted to get the album, and I knew that the album was coming out.
Yeah.
So I went down to McMachen's in Ballyclare, which was a newsagent, and asked them could I deliver papers on a Sunday. And I did the job in that. Then there was a record shop in Ballyclare called Burt McCormack's Records and Tapes.
Yep.
And they got it in. And that was the first record I actually went into a shop with and handed over my money with. Yeah.
What was the first professional concert that you ever attended?
I was at quite a few. Punk was quite big in the north of Ireland when I was a kid, so there was loads of punk bands. The wee town up the road from Ballyclare was called Glengormley. And there was loads of punk bands, some of whom were actually 3 or 4 years older than me at school.
Yep.
And they used to, it sounds insane now. It's a band called Music for the Deaf and a band called Tarot 13. And all, but the first gig I actually went to was in a primary school. They let all these local punks rent out of primary school.
Right, okay.
Music for the Deaf, the Allotropes, Pure Mania was the name of the band. They were really good.
Yep.
And then the first one professional one was Susie and the Banshees at the Ulster Hall.
Right.
And I was 13 or 14, and it was, this is the height of the Troubles. And it was me and a guy I went to school with called Alan Kissick, and a wee lad across the road called John Whitehouse. And we had like our little kind of biker jackets, which we got for Christmas, and our Dennis the Menace jumpers, and our trying to be spiky. And my dad, it was his job. He told everyone on the street, because we all lived in the same street in this housing estate called Erskine Park. And he says, right, I'll drop them off and I'll pick them up, because my dad was from Belfast. He kind of right? So I remember my dad and my mum sitting in the front seat. My dad was called Jimmy. My mum, oh, Jesus, Jimmy, look at the state of them ones outside. Are we doing the right thing here? Look at people with Mohicans and skinheads and all this.
Yeah.
And then we said, don't drop us at the front door. We were embarrassed. Like, drop us round the back. And of course, when they went down the side of the Ulster Hall, there was all these punks drinking cans of cider. My mum was having a conniption fit going, turn back, don't drop them off. But they dropped us off. And of course, when they dropped us off, we were absolutely terrified. Yeah. Because it was, we were only 14, and all these older punks were all drinking and smoking and using a lot of bad language. But then when we got into the venue and the music started, I just remember I'd never experienced a PA system like that before. So it was the Ulster Hall, which holds 2,500 people. Really, really loud PA. And Susie and the Banshees come on. And I think they opened with the Lord's Prayer, which is like a 12-minute dirge off Joint Hands.
Yep.
And I remember I desperately tried to get my way to the front. It was the first time I'd physically heard music on my chest.
Yeah.
Bass and everything. It was so loud that it actually... And I couldn't make out the lyrics. It was just this huge tidal wave of noise that nearly knocked me over.
It's funny that you say that, because I had almost pretty much the exact same experience. So my first concert was Metallica.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But this was back in 1996, maybe?
Yeah.
95, 96. And I'd never obviously been to a concert, walked into the arena, and I think the roadies were still on stage doing the sound check.
Yeah.
There was some kick drum, and you just feel it in your chest, and it changes you. I mean, it's such an experience. It's something I think everybody should experience at least once in their life. Go to a concert, and it almost doesn't matter who it is you go to see, but you should go and see it, because it's a great experience.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, after that first gig, we were addicted. So we came back home and my dad picked us up, and my dad was going to my mum, look, they didn't get stabbed. Everything was great. So we went to go to everything. But the thing was, not a lot of bands came to Belfast in that time because they were frightened, or their management was frightened. But punk and metal bands would come.
Yeah.
So after that, we went to see UK Subs. We would go and see everybody. I mean, we would go and see the Communards one week just because it was a gig. And then the next week, we'd see Metallica and Anthrax. Saw Jesus and Mary Chain, Simple Minds, saw the Smiths, if you do. But the punk bands, then we started going to see local punk bands like the Outcasts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They tended to be in smaller venues in parts of town, which we really shouldn't have been in for a bunch of year-old kids.
Yeah. But see, if you think back to therapy started in 1989.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And I said this to Michael, and he laughed, because I'd said Baby Teeth comes out 91. Mm-hmm. Pleasure Death comes out in 92, Nurse comes out in 92, Troublegum comes out in 94, Infernal Love comes out 95. A lot of touring in between all those albums. That is an extremely busy first 6 years for a band.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're young, you're up for it. Mm-hmm. But when you think back to that time period of the band first starting, does it feel like yesterday? Does it feel like a long time ago?
It now feels like a long time ago. I mean, for many years, it felt like the blink of an eye.
Yep.
It's got to the point now, I think since Neil Cooper joined in 2002, and we've really finally, and then we became a three-piece again in 2005. It's begun to feel like, this is what therapy's about. But I think, I mean, we did so much so quickly because, as you say, we were younger, we had much more energy. But I also do think, whenever I look back on therapy, I really do think after Infernal Love, we should have taken a year off, because we didn't make another record for 3 years, but we were constantly touring.
Yeah.
And I think what we should have done then was we should have finished at Christmas, the Infernal Love tour. And then myself and Michael, we knew Fife was there. We'd had a chat with Fife. We knew him. I think we should have taken 6 months off, because I think it didn't stop. And I think from about 96 through to kind of about 2002, it was kind of detrimental to our health. I'd got married in 97. We were trying to be parents and live down a life. And I think if anyone asked me about being in the band, I would say at some point you've got to take a bit of time off.
Yeah, but I know I discovered therapy, start to show my age now because it's that long ago, but I discovered therapy, I think, around 93. Mm-hmm. Obviously the Nurse album, Troublegum was out not long after that. And I don't know where I read this, but I really love this quote. I read somewhere that therapy were the missing link between Nirvana and Metallica. Someone said that the therapy fitted right in like a stepping stone between the two bands. I always thought that was a really cool quote.
Well, that's perfect, because the big thing is with us that we could never understand back in the day. Kerrang! Magazine was a bit more open-minded.
Yeah.
But there was still, it was so tribal. So as I mentioned to you earlier, we grew up listening to everything. So like I was really into punk. But there was two guys across the road from me who were really into heavy metal. And we do stuff like we play Risk or we play Monopoly during the summer.
Yep.
Or Subutio. And we'd go into each other's houses and we'd always have music playing. So whenever they're in my house, it'd be Buzzcocks, Damned, UK Subs, Sex Pistols, Banshees. When I was in their house, it was Motorhead, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, Tigers of Pantang. So like after a couple of summers, I knew all those songs. And then I would go and see some of the bands because my mates across the road would say, oh, we're going to go and see, Anthrax, do you want to come? And I would go and I would enjoy it, you know what I mean? And I might not have the long hair or anything like that. And similarly, they would ask to borrow albums by the Ramones and Stiff Little Fingers. Yeah. So it seemed to us really natural. And then whenever the Nirvana thing came along, I mean, I remember Therapy as a band had already started and we'd already written the first single and been practicing whenever I heard Bleach for the first time. And I remember me and Fife were practicing and I went and got Bleach and we were in his room, we played Bleach and he went, wow, he said, this kind of sounds like Black Flag meets Motorhead. And I was like, no, we really liked it. And it was, so to us, it was natural. There's other bands out there doing it. But to the people on the outside, it's like Therapy being so, there was a bunch of people out there that didn't like the fact that we liked metal. Yeah. It really wound some people up, especially in the likes of the NME and stuff like that, It would be like, we thought it was natural because we listened to absolutely everything. But at that point in time, if you go to download today, you see people with short hair that are playing tech. You see bands like Carey and stuff like that. Whereas back in those days, they were still very, very suspicious of people with short hair that claimed to like heavy metal. But that's a really good quote. I mean, because we loved Metallica. The metal bands we really liked were Metallica, Motorhead, and Black Sabbath. That was the three, really. I mean, I don't know a great deal about Iron Maiden or anything like that, but that was the three that all three of us liked. And Fife, he didn't really like heavy metal. He liked a band called Creator, and he liked Motorhead. But we all loved punk.
When you think back to that time period, obviously Troublegum was the big album. It's got great songs on it. It sounds just as good today as it did when it came out. Sonically, it was recorded really great. Michael had said that it's remarkable how well it sounds because it was recorded in bits throughout the year. But it's a great sounding album. Was that just simply the next 14 songs for yourself, or were you conscious of creating what Troublegum became?
Well, I remember we were in Putney in London, and we were going to do Short Sharp Shock, and we'd written all the songs for that. And we took it to the record company, and they went, all right, because the last album the record company put out was Nurse. When they heard Scream Age, you remember the A&R man going, oh, this is kind of Ramonesy. It's melodic. And I said, well, what were you expecting? I went, oh, maybe something a bit more like Nurse, 9 Inch Nails-y, kind of, a bit more. And he said, no, it's really good. He said, it's a great song. He said, this is brilliant. But he said, I'm very surprised. And we went, yeah. He says, yeah, we'll put it as an EP. So we put it as an EP, and that was the first time we worked with Chris Sheldon. And then we were on tour, and we'd written a song on tour. It was the song Turn. Written a song called Opal Mantra. And the record company says, well, let's get you with Chris again, just to get the ball rolling and see what it sounds like. And we played Turn to Chris, and he recorded that in Opal Mantra. And then he says, right, so we're doing this album. We went, yeah. I said, so what are the songs like? And I had a bunch of songs written, and Michael had some ideas too. And then as I was playing them back to him, he went, well, have you anything more like Scream Major and Turn? And I went, yeah. So we had Die Laughing, and we had Trigger Inside. And then we sort of had to sit down and go, well, this is going to be quite melodic, which is a bit of a departure from what Therapy's about. We might get a bit of flack for this. And Chris Sheldon was going, well, it's still pretty heavy. It's not exactly, it's not pop punk, it's melodic rock. And he said, but it's still got a bit of an edge. There's discordant chords in it. There's that drum sound, a really amazing business. So we said, okay, well, we'll go with this. So what we did was all the ideas we had, we chose the ones that sounded of the same ballpark, the screaming and all that. And then we did it, but we did do it, as Michael said, we were on tour so much, so we would maybe go to the studio and say, right, we'll do these 3 songs today, go off and play for 2 weeks in France, come back and then say, right, we'll record those 4 songs. And then when we mixed it all at the same place, so give it a bit of a uniform sound.
And what do you remember about 1994 there was the famous Brixton Academy gig that was recorded for MTV. Mm-hmm. What do you remember about playing that gig?
Well, I remember I'd always really wanted to play Brixton.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, there was a load of gigs, because I read the music press. I read Kerrang, and I read NME, Melody Maker Sounds. And you get to know the name of these venues. And there's certain ones you want to play. You've heard of King Tut's Wawa Hut.
Yeah.
You've heard of the venue in Edinburgh. You've heard of
Barrowlands
and all this. And then you've got the Ulster Hall in Northern. And then in London, you've got Brixton Academy, the Astoria. You've got the Town and Country Club, which is now known as a Forum.
Yeah.
So we were doing all that, and we'd already, because of Screamage, you had already done the Astoria and the Town and Country Club, and the booking agent was saying, well, the next one's Brixton Academy. It's 4,500 people. And I remember thinking that's a bit much, maybe, it's a bit of a stretch, because the Forum's 2,200, it's twice the size.
Yeah.
When Screamage and Turn went into the charts and Troublegum went into the charts, they booked it and it sold out. And I remember, thankfully, because I would have got really nervous, we were so busy. I think we had time to rock up to it, and then we had to spend an extra time sound checking because of all the cameras.
Yep.
And then after that, because it was during the Troublegum time, there was loads of press. We did press after the sound check, and then we had about an hour and a half before the gig to ourselves, which I think was really good because we didn't have to overthink it. So all we did was go on stage and do what we'd been doing the previous 2 weeks on tour all around Europe. So.
Funny, if you type it into YouTube, obviously you can go back and watch it, and it looks like such a great time, because the first thing that pops out is the fact that nobody has a phone holding a phone.
Yeah.
Just in the moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know if security was a little bit less back then, people crawling all over the top of each other, but the three of you were obviously on fire that night. Playing it was a good gig, but from obviously a fan of the band, back then, there was the big shock announcement, Fife Ewing leaving. There was the three of you had obviously started out together. See, when you think back to that time period, you think three kids from Ireland have achieved all this success, achieved their dreams, the same dreams that a lot of people have that don't get to do it. Mm-hmm. How did it feel for you personally to see one of those people walking away from it?
Well, it was sad to see. The saddest thing for me was because me and Fife started the band. We were the two people started it. And unfortunately, from about 1993 to that time when he left, our relationship had begun to unravel. Because we're two different people. I'm a bit of a grafter. I like to get stuff done. And Fife doesn't. And I think also he didn't like touring. And that's not a criticism. He really, really did not like touring. And I loved it. I absolutely love visiting different countries, meeting it. And I love playing live, which Fife didn't enjoy either. So it got to the point where a band like Therapy that was touring the world, the Troublegum tour, we did 3 world tours in a year. We were all over the place. We had 2 weeks off at Christmas. We were back in the studio recording Infernal Love. And then when the Infernal Love album was finished, we didn't go home. We get picked up at the studio and taken on tour. So it was just like, by the end, it was, me and Micah were going, well, this can't go on, because what's going on here? It's either he has to go or we didn't know what we were going to do. Yeah. Whenever he phoned me up and said he was leaving the band, it wasn't unexpected, because at that point in time, me and Mike were going, well, what do we do? Because it got to the point where the atmosphere was toxic, and it wasn't toxic in a way. We didn't physically fight or give each other abuse. It was the worst kind, because that would clear the air. It was passive aggressive. So none of us ever said anything to everybody else about what was winding each other up, and it just got to a head. And I think that was, at that point in time, I've no problems, with Fife having left the band, because, to be honest, for his mental health, it was the best thing he could have done. Yeah. I think at that point in time, as I said earlier, we should have taken about 6 months off, apart from me and Michael's mental health. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever, it's such a long time ago now, have you ever crossed paths with Fife?
No. And we keep in touch through management and stuff like that, because obviously if there's any re-releases come out that he played on, obviously it has to be run past him. He has to get paid his royalties. And there's, we always include him. If anyone gets in touch, he always says no, but if anyone gets in touch and goes, oh, could I interview him for such and such? Our manager keeps in touch, and he always just says no.
Yeah, I'd actually tracked him down for the podcast. I know he was never one for doing interviews, but I thought I'll put the question to him anyway. Yeah. He wished me all the luck, thanked me for the offer, but it wasn't for him, which is fine. Yeah. But obviously, for that time period as well, the other big gig that I think of is that you were invited by Metallica, 1995, to play Donington Monsters of Rock Festival. So what do you remember about getting the offer through, and what do you remember about the gig on the day?
Well, the offer, I don't know if Michael told you this story. Lars kind of liked Troublegum, but he didn't know the band.
Yeah. He says that he's met in Paris.
That's right, yeah. So we were flown over to Paris and we met him. And I was more nervous about meeting James Hetfield because a guitar player, I absolutely, his style was, when you've listened to Troublegum, you know how much his style influenced me. Yeah. But they were really good because they were doing a gig, I think it was in Heaven in London as a warm-up for the gig. And so we went and met him in Paris and we had a beer with him. Yeah. And then we sort of Slash Snake Pit were playing. Got home the next day, says, yeah, Lars really likes you and Mike, and you've got the gig. Yep. And that was fine. And then they said, oh, you've been invited. They're doing a warm-up gig. So we went to see them in Heaven, and afterwards we sort of went to the after show, got to meet all of them. They were all really, really sweet. I remember Kirk Hammett. I was wearing a pair of, the whole Infernal Love thing. I'd gone for the sort of almost teddy boy look with a quid. Yeah. I was wearing these bizarre crocodile skin loafers. I know exactly, which he'd bought in a shop in London. Yep. And Kirk was really taken by them. Right. And he kept going, hey man, where'd you get your shoes and all that? So I gave him the name of the shop, and then he gave me his phone number, and I gave him my phone number. Never called him because I was so shy. And years ago, whenever I've moved house 2 or 3 times, I opened a CD and Kirk Hammett's phone number on the CD. I just think, wow. But yeah, no, I remember them being really, really good. And then I remember the day of the gig, I didn't enjoy it as much because we'd done Donington the year before, and we were way down the bill, and I really enjoyed it. And this year, I remember we were second from top because Infernal Love and Troublegum had both been in the top 10. That's why we were there.
Were you not after Slayer?
Yes. But I love Slayer, but Slayer didn't like the fact that we were on after them. And Kerry King was very vocal about it. I don't know if Michael told you about meeting him a few years later. So Michael bumped into him a few years later. So when we got there, our agent was in our dressing room on the Metallica show going, everyone's complaining. They're saying, why are therapy so high up the bill? And I'm having to go, well, if they've had a couple of top 10 albums, that's... Yep. He says, yeah, but they're not as heavy as Slayer and all this kind of stuff. Kerry King wasn't pleased. And a few years ago, we played one of the big 4 gigs in the Czech Republic. Yeah. And Michael bumped into Kerry King, and he knew Michael loves heavy metal. I think he went over, he had a copy of Rain and Blood to get Kerry to sign. And I think he went over and said, oh, it's Michael from Therapy. He said, oh yeah, I remember you guys. Yeah. Yeah, it's Show 95. Says, someone got the billing right today. Because we were second daughters. He did, yeah. So that put me off a little bit, and then we went on stage, and they have the Snake Pit, right? And I remember Crusher was introducing us, and there was a handful of probably about 20 people shouting "Therapy or shit," because they were obviously there to see Metallica, right? And that wound me up. And then when we went on stage, because I was expecting it to be the year before. The year before, we were on the main stage, and at the end of the show, every set of hands was in the air. And this one was a bit more difficult. So I didn't enjoy the show. We played really well, but I just felt a bit like it was a Metallica gig, not Castle Donington. And we were maybe with a cello on stage. I was dressed like a teddy boy. It was a bridge too far for a lot of people to kind of warm to.
Well, it said he was nervous because you were also playing a lot of new songs.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's what we always used to do. I mean...
Just a very quick message to say thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos, like and leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the episode and give me some suggestions on who I should interview in the future. Back to the video.
Most other bands would have probably put 3 new songs in and played most of Troublegum. But afterwards, I must admit, I was really nervous. And afterwards, they had an after show at Cinderella's in Birmingham, a rock club. And we got the invite. Yep. And they were all really sweet. All of them were there. All of them took time to talk to all of us. So, I mean, I love, as I say, I was never really that big a metal fan, but Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets really changed the way I played guitar, because I'm not into lead guitar, but I love the way Hetfield played. And I'll always have that. And I won't have a bad word said about Metallica, because even though the fans didn't warm to us that day, they were brilliant.
Yeah. What do you remember about the fateful night that you bumped into Neil Cooper at a gig when Therapy were looking for a drummer, and all of a sudden you bump into Neil at a gig? What do you remember about that?
Well, it was Rival Schools in Islington.
Right.
I'd just moved. I mean, I'd lived in Ireland all my life, and I'd just moved to East Anglia on the outskirts of Cambridge, because I got married in 97, and my wife had come over to Ireland. And then when we had our son, she didn't want her son really. I was always on tour. She didn't know anyone, so she wanted to move back to East Anglia so that she's got lots of friends around with her, and I'm tour, understandably. And we were back about 4 or 5 months, and Graham Hopkins had left the band.
Yep.
And we were kind of going to go down the road of, we'd planned to have 2 or 3 days of auditions. Like we did whenever Fife left the band, we had auditions, and our management was on. And I was to be honest, I was at the bit where I thought, it didn't really work out with Graham, and it ended a bit messy, and it made me a bit cross. And can I be bothered going through this again? I said to Mike was going, I'll be great. I'll be grand. Come on. So my wife was there, and I was going, I'll fancy going to see in a gig. It's Rival Schools. And she went, I've never heard of them. And she went, well, you're a bit down the dumps. I'll drive you down. Well, I'll drive you, give a few beers, you know what I mean? Because normally I would have driven myself down or got the train.
Yep.
So we drive down to Rivals, and I'm standing at the bar, and all of a sudden Neil's there, and I haven't seen him since, I think in 1994 he came to one of the Troublegum shows, and that was the last time I'd seen him. And he said, whenever Fife left, I wanted to audition, but I didn't know if you'd remember me or have me in the band. But he said, I'm not in Cable anymore, and if you give me a chance. So, I mean, to be honest, he was one of our favourite ever drummers.
Well, it's funny, I had said to Neil, because Neil was also on the podcast, I had said to Neil, in hindsight, Fife was a very unique drummer. He didn't. A lot of people don't play like him. Mm. He was very unique. But in hindsight, when you look back now, it's almost like Neil was the perfect fit for Therapy, because they've actually got a similar drumming style. Yeah, the same background, and I hadn't heard the Beyond, and then when I went and started listening to the Beyond, you can see similarities in their drumming style. So it's almost like Neil was the perfect choice for Therapy, and clearly he was, because 23 years later, he's haven't managed to get rid of him. He's still there behind the kit, and when you think 23 years, the three of you have been in as a band, that's an achievement. What makes Therapy work as a band, in your opinion? And I don't mean in terms of success, but what makes Therapy work? Does it have a leader? Does it need to have an equal split 3 ways? How does Therapy work as a band?
Well, it works as the three of us now, democratically. So initially, it was the three of us, and I would write the majority of the music. Fife, an amazing drummer, but he didn't play anything. He didn't write any riffs or anything like that. But we'd arrange everything as a band. And then when he began to retreat into Shell after Nurse, and Nurse was a hard album to write because he didn't want to practice or anything like that. So it was like pulling teeth. I just took over the reins for Troublegum, and I said, look, here's the songs. Yep. And it's the same thing with Infernal Love. And then when Graham joined, it was really kind of messy, because I think, in hindsight, Graham joined a band that was famous, and I think he thought he'd walk into it and it would still be famous. And unfortunately, the band had a lot of struggles, and they struggled with their profile and all that. So that was the end of that. But I think when Neil joined, I remember we rehearsed in a place in Sussex for the album, and we hadn't seen Neil really in years, and he had a few rehearsals, and we sat down with a few beers after rehearsing. So what went wrong with Fife? What went wrong with Graham? And then we said, well, it's that passive-aggressive thing. Nobody ever really said anything. And then when both of them left the band, we would meet mutual friends who would say, oh, he said he left because of this, that, and this, which was news to us. And we said, well, we don't want that happening. So we made a pact. After 2 or 3 beers, we decided that we'll tell you what, from now on, if anyone doesn't like anything in rehearsal or the way we're doing something, say there and then, it's going to be painful, but it'll save it all coming out at 3 a.m. at a truck stop in Norway, when you're on tour.
Yeah, or building resentment.
Building resentment, that's a really good way of putting it. And that's why we're still together for 23 years, because we've got this amazing thing now where someone can go, I don't like that, or I don't like this, or I don't want to do that, or I don't think this is the kind of thing to be doing as a band. And also, it means that there's no resentment, because I'm not writing all the songs anymore either. We write bits and pieces between us. And I'm very comfortable with the other two. If I come in with a song and they go, I'm not sure about that chorus, I'm not precious.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's I mean, we're all about solutions, not problems. So, if something doesn't work, rather than going, what would have happened in the past with the other, but bless him, Pfeiffer Green with Assault. Whereas Neil would go, well, let's come back to it when we've got something, which is the best way to do so.
Almost like a little bit of maturity as well.
It is. I mean, we were all a lot younger then. And one thing I do remember actually about the whole Fife Neil thing, so whenever we toured with the Beyond, it was only 5 gigs.
Yeah.
Fife notoriously he thought all other drummers were shit. He could be quite arrogant, and he used to say shit. We'd say, this band's brilliant. Drummer shit. Husker Du, love Husker Du, drummer shit. All this kind of stuff. But whenever we went on tour with the Beyond, Neil was really young, and he really liked Neil Cooper's style of playing. Mm-hmm. And on our album Pleasure Death, there's a song called Skin and Pit, and there's a breakdown in it.
Yep.
Dun, dun, da, 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 da. And we used to call that bit in rehearsals the Beyond bit.
Yep.
We had toured with them. They did all these really stabby guitar bits.
Yep.
Because Neil, like Fife, was also into hip hop and techno.
Yeah.
That was called the Beyond bit when we wrote it, and years later he's in the bloody band.
Yeah. I can remember Neil saying that him and Fife actually got on quite well, and I think it changed. Back then it was like tapes. Try listening to this, try listening to that, and but Neil just seems like the perfect fit for therapy. And he's some drummer as well, though. I mean, he really is outstanding. But see, if you were to sit down with someone that had never heard therapy before, and you were to pick one song that you think best represents the band, what song do you think you would play them?
Oh, that's a hard one. I really don't know. I would always play something off a recent record.
Yep.
Because I'd rather than just living in the past. I think if it was, I really don't. I can't think, honestly. I can't. I would play that. Be honest. There's only a couple of howlers in our back catalogue. I'd be embarrassed to play anyone. But most of them, I could just say, this is kind of what we're about.
Yeah. And obviously, you play the guitar, you sing. I'm assuming the guitar came first. Singing came second?
The singing was, I mean, I don't know if Michael initially when we formed the band, none of us really wanted to sing. It was me and Fife.
Yeah.
Then we loved Steve Albini's stuff with Big Black. And he had said in an interview in a fanzine that he has all his vocals buried low in the mix. So the vocals are like another instrument. So whenever we did our first couple of demos, originally I was just singing, because the idea was I would sing until we got a proper singer in, and I would play bass until we got or I would play guitar until we got a guitarist in, because I was initially a bass player.
Okay.
So I would sing, and then Fife was very, very uncomfortable singing. So what we would do is, something like Me Abstract, what Fife was good at doing was singing and drumming at the same time, but he couldn't write the melodies or anything like that. So I would sit down with him, and it was in his dad's house. His mum and dad were separated, and his dad was out during the day, so we had the house to ourselves. He would sit opposite me with a drum kit.
Yep.
And I would say, well, this is Me Abstract. He goes, da 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 da.
Yeah.
And he'd go, okay. And it would just be me and him, and he would drum with brushes, and he'd sing the lyrics while he was drumming, which was amazing. And then he'd go, okay, that's it. And that was kind of how we would do stuff like that. And he got very, very comfortable doing that. But we always sort of thought at some point we'll get someone in to sing. So whenever we first started therapy, because we liked Husker Du, although we didn't like the drums, Grant Hart sang a song, Bob Mould sang a song. So we said, right, that's going to be therapy's dynamic.
Yep.
So something like Me Abstract, I said, well, I'll sing this one. Something like Punishment Kiss, which is like a big black triangle, I said, well, I'll sing that one.
Yep.
And then we kind of just found our roles, and then we ended up just staying. And I know that at the very beginning, Fife was still incredibly uncomfortable with singing. you know,
Right.
and we had, he used to ask the people out front to keep his vocals low. And then also because the snare drum had such a distinctive sound, he had a mic around there, but the snare drum would go down the mic.
Right, okay.
Like the person at the front would be just picking up pang, 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 you know, with some vocals on top of it, which if you were in the audience probably sounded really amazing because it probably sounded unique.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then as we got on, it was like when we got to kind of nurse, whenever we got to nurse, he didn't do any of the rehearsal stuff with me. So like whenever we were doing stuff like Deep Sleep, we wouldn't sit in the studio. I would sing him the melody, he wouldn't drum it and play it.
Yeah.
And that's why half that album we never did live, because he never actually sat down and worked out drumming and playing at the same time, which was a shame, really.
And Michael said he felt that you stepped forward as the proper frontman, probably for Troublegum onwards.
Yeah, and it wasn't like some Machiavellian scheme that I had planned from the beginning. It was like literally Fife was retreating more and more in his shell.
Yep.
And me and Michael felt that we were onto something really good that people seemed to like.
Yep.
Initially, Fife didn't have a problem with it. You know, Fife would say stuff like, well, you're much better at that. Let's see your hands in the air thing and all that. You know, that you're better at that than I am. So I didn't mind doing it. And then I think the word you used earlier on, I think as time went on, the resentment kicked in a little bit. I think because in interviews, unfortunately, people would always ask to speak to what they perceived to be the singer. So like people in the UK and Ireland knew the band's history and they would kind of go, oh, is Andy singing a bit more now? But, you know, we only really got known with Nurse and with Short Sharp Shock in continental Europe and in America. So would presume that I was a singer anyway, and that caused a few problems.
Yeah. See, when you think like your voice as an instrument, you know, you play the guitar, clean the guitar, restring it, you know, you can have a guitar for 30 years and it still sounds great. How do you think your voice as an instrument has developed over the years? How is your singing voice now compared to, for example, 30 years ago? Because your voice will naturally age over time. How do you feel your voice is now?
Well, it's actually better now, but if I can try and explain this properly. As a singer, I don't drink or smoke anymore. I mean, I drink occasionally, but not when I'm on tour. And I used to drink and smoke so much.
Yep.
And then I began to find about the mid-noughties, my voice was beginning to go. It was beginning to blow out every night after 3 or 4 songs. And then I started probably around about 2007, 2008, really taking care of it. Right. And it's now great. It lasts a whole gig. I know I do all the exercises. I have all the throat drinks. But I'm worried that it's losing a little bit of that kind of uniqueness that came with not giving a shit. Because now I think of myself about a singer, whereas even back with Troublegum, I didn't think of myself as a singer. I just thought, well, I'm the bloke that says the words. Do you know what I mean? And
I had someone on who's a singer, and I'd asked them the same question, and what they gave me a really great answer. What they'd said was they didn't think that their voice had changed too much, thankfully, over the years. But back when they were in their 20s, they could just jump up on stage and go for it. Whereas now they probably need to warm up a little bit more and take care.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I know exactly what he's talking about. It's all that preparation stuff, and also even stuff really ridiculous stuff like your metabolism slows down, so you have to make sure you don't drink too much liquid, otherwise it's bouncing around your stomach on the stage.
Yeah, and you do quite a lot of bouncing around on stage as well.
Yeah, well, I've had a little bit of a break from that because of my knees, but hopefully next year with 2 new knees, I'll be a bionic man back.
The last time I seen you in concert, I saw you at the Garage in Glasgow.
Oh yeah,
and it was the one where you came on, you came firing out, played the first song, and then it all stopped because there'd been an altercation with I don't know if it was a roadie and somebody that works in the venue, but it was a very strange. I've never seen that before.
Well, that was bizarre. I mean, I must admit, the in-house, front-of-house engineer for the Garage that day was an absolute legend. So our tour manager, Richard, is also our front-of-house guy. He's been with us for years. And he's he's about 6'6". He's a gentle giant.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, what happened was somebody from the venue came into our dressing room earlier in the day. And I can't remember what, it was one of the local security. I can't remember whether it was to get a drink out of our fridge or whatever.
Yeah.
And our tour manager turned around and said something like, what the fuck are you doing in here? This is a band's room. And that was what he thought was the end of it. And he said 2 songs in at the garage, a bunch of 4 or 5 security went, that's the fucker there. And because he was abusive to staff, threw him out during the fucking gig.
Right, okay.
We came off, and they'd taken him outside. They said that you're not allowed in the venue. So we came off stage, and the bass tech came running up and says, right, your front of house engineer's been barred from the venue for being rude to one of the security. So that you're going to have to go on. And I've had a word with a local guy who said, well, I'll do it for them. He says he kind of knows who the band are. Yeah. So the lad that did it in-house he knew a few songs with Therapy, but he didn't know the set we were playing. So that's what that was all about. But it was it was an awful atmosphere, actually, because I think for some reason the bouncers took real umbrage at the band then. And what a lot of people don't know is I was doing that gig, and one of the security spent the entire gig shining a laser in my eyes to wind me up.
All right, okay.
The band hadn't done it, and I don't know what. So we've never been back to the garage, unfortunately, since that day.
Well, I have to say, from someone that was simply in the audience, it was a good gig.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. It was, as I say, the local in-house guy was a legend. The crowd were brilliant because the crowd they could have all went, well, what the fuck's this? But the crowd were great.
I seen you at King Tut's about 10 years before that when Ricky Warwick was your support.
Oh yeah.
And that was a great gig as well. It's such a cool sized venue.
Aye.
And what I really liked about Therapy was you came out and you played the obvious songs, but you also done these deep cuts and B-sides, and you done something from every album when you were at King Tut's. But then when I seen you at the garage, it was a completely different set list again. It wasn't a rehash of the same thing, so it kept it really interesting.
I think with having so many albums, I think I think, to be honest, you can overthink it as a band because most people going to see us, people that know Therapy inside out will like the deep cuts. But you have to be realistic. Most people that come and see us in the crowd want to hear certain songs. Yeah. But what we do it for is to keep us interested. And it's, it's like, if we say to ourselves, right, let's play something off Infernal Love, like Jude the Obscene that we haven't played in years, we go back and listen to it, and then you listen to it again, and you go, I quite like this now. I didn't like it at the time, like that wee guitar bit. And then when you play it, and it sometimes backfires. Like we did a show in Cork, and we used to get this guy who used to come to Cork, and he used to say to us, because I remember Baby Teeth was number 1 on the Irish indie charts. Yeah. Whenever it was number 1, we were playing in Cork the day Baby Teeth went to number 1, and we packed out Sir Henry's, which is a big deal for a band with one album out. And this guy always came to the gigs. He went, "You're never playing enough Baby Teeth." We go, "We'll play me else." He says, "Loser Cop and Dance with Manson." So we knew we had a gig in Cork, and we did Loser Cop, Dance with Manson, Punishment, Kiss and Me, Abstract. And we said, you know what? Let's open with these 4 songs, because apparently everyone in Cork, that's their favourite album, more than Troublegum, more than Inferno. Yep. And we went on and opened with those 4 songs to a crowd that went,
"What's this?
What's this?" So, I mean, it was good fun for us, but they were literally going, "What is this?" You could see them asking each other, "Is this new? What's this?" But
Andy, what's the plans for the rest of the year? You kind of said before, is it to basically get the other knee done?
Yeah, we're writing the new album, so it takes 12 weeks recovery from me. After 6 weeks, I can rehearse sitting down. After 12 weeks, it's fine. Yep. We've had 3 different writing sessions where we've got together and we've been writing new stuff. And the lads, we send each other stuff by MP3. Yeah. And I get the next knee done in October, and then November and December we'll get together again. And that's the plan. I've got 4 more shows in Germany. Well, it's part of a sort of part of Wacken Full Metal Cruise thing. And then the rest of the time, well, my knee should be recovered by halfway through November, and we'll get 3 more sessions in then. But then next year, we obviously will be recording the new album, and the plan is just to extensively tour it.
That's cool. Well, you'll see me whenever you swing by Edinburgh, Glasgow, whatever it is.
Fantastic, thank you.
You'll see me. But Andy, before we finish up, I've got a couple of fun questions to ask you. So I'll ask the question, you tell me what pops into your head. Okay. So imagine you could go back in time. Here in the world, big gig, small gig. What's the one concert that you wish that you could have attended?
I think I'd love to have seen Cannibal Captain Beefheart and his magic band.
Right.
When Trout Mask Replica was there, or when the Clear Spot was there. Because it's not really punky, but there's something about them that I've always loved.
Yeah.
Or even maybe the Skids, whenever Scared to Dance was out, the first album. I remember I wasn't able to go to the gig they played in Belfast, so first one of the early Skids gigs.
Similar question. See if you could go back as a spectator, one of your own gigs. Mm-hmm. Is there a particular one that stands out that you think would be quite interesting to see yourself?
I'll tell you exactly what one I'd like to see. So the Ulster Hall in Belfast is where I went to see Susie and the Banshees, seen the UK Sub, seen the Smiths, seen Metallica, Anthrax. And I always used to love going there. And you go to the front and you get butterflies in your stomach, because the gig's about to begin.
Yeah.
Lights dim, and then you see the little lights that the roadies have switched the amps on, and your heart's pounding. So the first time we ever did the Ulster Hall, it was on the Nurse tour. And the agent said, you're playing the Ulster Hall now. And we're going, what? You're playing the Ulster Hall? And when we sound checked, I remember looking out the front going, God, when I saw the Susie and the Banshees, I was there. When I saw Metallica, I was there. So I was thinking some wee lads and girls are coming tonight, and this is maybe they're going to remember where they were when they saw Therapy.
Yeah. So
I think that's probably one of our own gigs, the very first time we did the Ulster Hall on the Nurse tour in 92.
Cool. Is there another instrument you wish you could play?
Not really. If it's in the same ballpark, I wish it was better at home recording, because Michael and Neil are brilliant at that.
Yeah.
They can like literally, they can put together a drum beat, some scratch guitar from a synth and send it to me and go, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
I do everything on my phone. I record all my riffs on my phone and send them. Yeah. So that's kind of simple. Yeah, I can play a little bit of keyboards, I can play the guitar and the bass. Not really fussy, but if I could, no more way around recording after all these years, I've never got any better at it.
That's fine. If you had to pick writing and recording or performing live for the rest of your days, which one would you pick?
Performing live?
Yeah.
Because I still get such an enormous buzz out of it. And I've got a lot of musician friends, and some of them, won't name names, that are peers of mine that were around from the 90s onwards. And some of them prefer writing. And I mean, I've known a few people in big bands that have said to me, I would happily sit in my house, play guitar and write songs all day if I never had to tour again. And they see touring as something that they have to do. Yeah. Whereas I don't mind writing and recording. It's really good fun and I love the process of it. But there's something about actual touring and going out on stage which is still magical to me. Yeah.
Here's a question then. This one's going to be the deciding factor for the other band members. So I've asked the other two members this question. So imagine you've got a dead body in the back of your car. It's 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
You need help disposing of that body. No questions asked. Which member of therapy are you phoning to help you?
I would phone Michael because he's the most sanguine out of the lot of us, and Michael McKeegan is the most unflappable person under pressure that I've ever come across. I mean, I sat beside him. We flew to Russia once before the war. We used to play in Russia quite a lot, and we were in a plane that got hit by lightning.
Right.
And Michael just sat completely expressionless. And the two ladies beside to my right were praying and crossed themselves. Michael was on the left, was totally calm. Yeah. I was having kittens. The plane was bouncing about all over the place. And I've seen it in sometimes when I've been in a situation when it looks like it could all kick off. Yeah. And Michael's just been completely stony-faced and calm. So I would say Mr. Michael McKeegan could dispose of the body.
That's fine. No, we'll not say any more about that.
Yeah.
As you know, thousands and thousands of great songs have been written and recorded a couple of years. What's the one song you wish you could have sat in the recording studio to witness the song being recorded?
It's my favourite song of all time, Buzzcocks, Ever Fallen in Love with Someone You Shouldn't Have. Because there's probably about 4 songs in my life that I never get tired of hearing.
Yep.
That's one of them. And it's just, there's the little magic on the guitar where I've read that it's either Steve Diggle or Pete Shelley. No one can tell me which did the little off bit.
Yeah.
But there's something about that song. It just sounds incredible. It sounds magical. And I've seen the Buzzcocks live a load of times, but something I'd love to have been there when they wrote that.
Yeah.
Apparently Pete Shelley wrote the lyrics in a hotel room, and then, as they did in those days, then they rehearsed it at soundcheck. But I just think there's something about that, which the way the guitar sounds, the way the vocals overlap over each other. I'd love to have been at the studio when we were doing that.
And last question for you, Mount Rushmore,
Mm-hmm.
4 bands or musicians for yourself that you see as your favourites?
Ramones would be one of them.
Yep.
Metallica would be another one. There's an artist I really like, electronic artist called Burial.
Right.
And probably, it'd be either one of Black Sabbath. I call it the Big Black Sabbath flag. There's 3 bands I can't differentiate from each other: Big Black Sabbath, and Black Flag. So actually, you know what? The Rushmore would be Big Black Sabbath, Black Flag, and Burial. There you go.
There you go. Well, Andy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Questions. I look forward to what comes out with the band next year. There'll be new music. There'll be a tour. You'll see me on the tour.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
I can't wait to come along. I've been a fan for 30 years. I'll be a fan for the next 30 years as well, if you keep going that long.
I appreciate your support. Thanks very much, my friend. Thank you.
And I'll see you next time you're on tour as well.
You will do. Thanks so much.